Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. Hope you're enjoying Tech Week. If this is your first session, welcome. If you're returning, we're glad to have you back. So today you are jumping in on the session called Fun with Forms. So we're going to talk all about Google Forms, some fun things you can do with it. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our presentation. I do want you to know that there is a slight lag for our YouTube live streaming. So just don't worry. If you have some questions, post them in the chat. But there is a little bit of a lag. So when we see your questions, we will try to address them as best as possible. I have Krista here helping me moderate. So thank you guys again for coming out and joining us today on this Monday as we prepare for the school year. So what I need you to do, if you are a Livingston Parish teacher, we are asking that you go to tinyurl.com/LPPS attendance, and that will let us know that you are here. We are entering your names in for a drawing, and there's even a drawing for an interactive panel, I'm being told, for people who are attending all these sessions. So that's wonderful. So again, fill out the attendance form if you are a Livingston Parish teacher. You can also use your cell phone to open your camera and scan this QR code, and it will take you there as well on your cell phone. So I'm going to give you guys just a second to get that done as you're hopping in. And so again, we're glad you're here. I'm just going to give you a minute. All right, so we're going to move forward, and I'd like to introduce myself to you. My name is Casey Moscow. I have taught for the past 10 years at Doyle High School here in the town of Livingston. I teach science and chemistry and AP chemistry. And so I've gotten a few chances to really get to know Google Forms, and I'm glad to be able to share today what I have learned with you. So if you would not mind, please introduce yourself in the chat and let me know where you teach, what grade level you are a part of, and if you feel up to it, an interesting fact about yourself. So please just put that down into the chat for us. And just so you know who I am, I'm a wife and a mom of 3 kids. I am a huge coffee lover, and I like to read when I have time, and I love vacationing. So those are some things just about me. So definitely tell us a little bit about you. Hello, everybody. Hello, Christy and Cynthia and Courtney and April, Mary, Deborah. We're so glad you guys are with us today. All right, so one of the things that I want to make sure everybody that's just now hopping on is doing, we need you to fill out an attendance form if you are from Livingston Parish. If you are not from Livingston Parish, thank you for joining us. You do not need to fill this out if you are not from our school district. So just don't forget to do that, guys. Those of you hopping on right now, be sure to go ahead and take care of that. All right, let's look at some announcements and how we're going to handle today's session. If you have any questions, there is a chat area to the right of your screen. If you're on your cell phone, I believe you can turn it right side up, and there's a chat feature at the bottom where you can fill in any questions you have. If we don't get to your question, at the end, I will send or display my email for you. You're welcome to email me. Today we are scheduled from about 12 to, I think on the schedule it actually says 2:45. I can tell you it is not going to take that long. We'll probably run an hour, hour and a half. That was originally because when we were meeting in person, we were going to have some time to really practice building these forms and so forth. But you are welcome to open a new tab to the side of the window, and you can work on some forms as we're going through and demonstrating how to do this, okay? So to get started, I'm actually gonna see if you guys will do a little poll for me. So if you go to menti.com and enter the code 300927, or if you have your cell phone handy and you want to scan this QR code, it will take you there. I want to see what your experience with Google Forms is already. So I'm going to open up my little interactive presentation software, and let's see what we know about Google Forms. So go to menti.com, the code 300927. So some of you, we have a Google Master. So that's awesome. So if you could please menti.com 300927 and let us know what your experience with Google Forms is, okay? And I'm going to come back to this in just a minute and see how you guys, if you're familiar with it. So let me give y'all just a second. So we've got people who have created a few forms, looking to learn new things. People who filled out some forms, haven't actually created any yet. Okay, got some people kind of all over. I'm right there in the middle. Awesome. So it looks like some of us have used forms before, filled some out, created a few. We've got a Google Master in the house, so awesome. Be sure to chime in with some of your tips throughout. I have never used Google Forms before, so we've got a few of those popping up now, and so great. Great. This gives me some good feedback to know how to move forward throughout the presentation. So awesome. Thank you guys for filling that out for me. Okay, today's session. So we are going to go through ways we can use Google Forms. We're also going to look at how to create them. And then we're going to talk how you can push those out to your students, your parents, if you're an administrator, how you can push them out to your faculty, even your community members, if this is something you want to push out to people in the community. And then we're going to look at how we're going to access the information that was collected in that form. And at the very end, if you want to hang around, there are going to be some extras and some add-ons that we'll discuss that might make your life a little bit easier when setting up these forms, okay? So I'm excited to show you guys those. All right, first things first, I do want to share with you some ways Google Forms can be used. And so I'm going to put all of these up and I'm going to click through them just as examples. Okay, so we have this first form is a way that you can collect parent information. And so this one isn't a very long form. You can add more fields where you can actually send this out and collect some information about parents so that you can contact them. This next example is a book survey that you could potentially push out to your students, especially if you're ELA, or maybe you're a librarian and you're trying to keep track of some AR. So you can create a survey for students to fill out when they complete a book. We have behavior management examples where you can actually track students. I personally, I'm not going to click this. This template uses a drop-down menu, but you could just type the student's name in when you set it up, and then you could choose what color the student moved to, or however it is you do discipline in your classroom. And so that's a neat little tool as well to keep track. Then we have student surveys and polls. This is a survey I sent out to my AP chemistry students actually just a few weeks back because we had to finish learning online right before their AP chemistry test. And so I wanted to know how much they participated, how much they studied on their own, looking at the review videos, and then what we could do different for next year if I had to do distance learning. So those are always wonderful because you can get honest student feedback, and they're usually pretty honest when they can type or write those things in. You can do some voting, homecoming court, class favorites, all that sort of things as well, or all those sorts of things. And so right now, look, I've got your homecoming maid selection. Look at all those names in there, all those beautiful ladies. Wish we were in 9th grade again, huh? But so anyhow, you can do voting for homecoming or any type of class favorite or award as well. Then you've got options to do field trip signups this way, and you can post that link on your Google Classroom and have the students click in and let their parents fill out field trip forms. And then one of my favorite new things that I've really been playing with this summer is setting up some breakout rooms, which are really fun for the students. And so we're going to look at how to do that and how to insert some really neat questions to get your students competitive. You know, when it's breakout rooms and they have to do something before the next student or group finishes, you know how competitive they get. So we're going to take a look at some of those as well. Some more options you can actually have. Try to go a little faster here so we're not stuck looking, but I'm trying to jog your brain a little bit to get you thinking about ways you can use these forms. I use a sign out form in my classroom for the bathroom. And so my students have to fill out their first and last name and when they're going and what time they're leaving and then where they're going. And then what this does is it allows them afterwards to put in which teacher they're going to. And then when they come back, they put the time they came back in the room and then they submit it. And what's really neat about using a form in this nature for this is it timestamps it. So like you can actually see how long the kid was out, especially high schoolers. I am a high school teacher, so we have a little bit of mischievous, you know, a little bit of those little scheming students running around. And so this is really neat because you can timestamp it. You can also sort it by student. So you can see that, for example, little Johnny goes to the bathroom every hour at this time, every single day. And some people are like, well, that's kind of an invasion of privacy. Obviously, I'm not looking through to see how often kids go to the bathroom, but it's a really neat way to keep track of who's leaving your classroom and how often. And hey, let's talk about why do you need to leave the classroom that often? You're missing so much class time. So that's a really neat thing because it's timestamped automatically in Google Forms. You could set up t-shirt orders, volunteer signups. You could do exit tickets. You can take a lunch count. There's even ways you can set this up for homework accountability if your student didn't turn in an assignment. So you can set it up so that they have to be accountable and fill out this form. Mock AR tests, and then of course quizzes. Whether they're summative or formative assessments, you can set up ways to really track and see if your students are understanding some material. Okay, so those are just some examples that I really wanted you to start thinking about ways you might can implement this in your classroom just beyond the usual, here's a set of questions to answer. Okay, if you want more on digital escape rooms, just to let everybody know, in the description of the video, I did post a link to this presentation because in just a minute, I'm going to be moving away from it so that I can start showing you exactly step by step how we can do these different options. But I did include a link to some more on digital escape rooms from ditchthattextbook.com, which is a great resource. Okay, so the possibilities really are endless. And so what I wanted to do at some point, if you think at any time during the presentation that you came up with a great idea for something you could use, I would love it if you would put your thoughts into this Padlet. So the address is tinyurl.com/formslp. And so if you will go ahead and go to that web address, and Chris, you can leave that up for them. That's fine. You don't have to take it off right now. And so at any point, if you guys come up with an idea or think, oh, well, I would like to use this in my classroom. Maybe you're an administrator and you want to use this with your faculty to do sign up for when they have to work concession stand or, collecting, again, volunteer information for your classroom. If you're a coach, you can definitely collect parent and athlete information, t-shirt sizes. If you're trying to quickly get an order together for t-shirts or whatever it is, you can use forms to collect that information in a digital platform, and it's a really neat tool. So Chris is going to leave that address up for you for now, and that way you can go through and you can actually, that's okay. You can actually go to that Padlet and put your ideas there. Okay, so this is actually where I'm going to go ahead and get away from my presentation because I am going to hop in to I'm going to go to my drive.google.com and drive.google.com. Everyone needs to make sure, if you are from Livingston School District, that you are logged into your school Google account. Okay, so just make sure you do that. If you are not logged into your Livingston account, then you will be creating things in a personal Gmail account and your personal Google account. And so just make sure you click over to the right and log in using your livingstonsschools.net credentials. And then that will make sure everything that you do is a part of that account and you can access it. Okay, so first things first, to access Google Forms, you have over here at the right-hand side of the screen, we have our Google App Launcher, which many times we talk about and refer to as the waffle. And so we see that in Microsoft as well as Google. So Google has some applications. You can click on this and you'll see you have forms. Now, if you don't see forms at the top, you can grab this little bar here and you can scroll down and you've got a bunch of little neat tools available to you here. Okay, so anyhow, click the waffle and then you can go to forms that way. Another way is once you are in your Google Drive, you can actually create a new form just from this little plus sign that's at the left. So you can, before you create it, you can make sure you're in whatever folder it is that you want to be in. So if I want to be in my chemistry folder, then I can click on chemistry and then I can create my form there. So you click new and then you get a menu that pops up. Now you don't see forms here, but what you do is you go down to more and then Google Forms pops up. So then if you hover over the arrow to the right, there is an option for a blank form and there is an option from a template. So that's another way you can do that. In the search bar, you can also type in forms.google.com and that will take you to this menu. Again, going over all the ways that you can access a Google form. So here you can choose templates that already exist. It'll show you all the forms that you've created, and then you can create a blank one here. And then a cool little Google hack, slides. I just did a presentation on slides. Forms.new, as long as I'm logged into my account, if I do forms.new, docs.new, slides.new, it will create and open a brand new template for you. So once you do that, you will open and click blank, or you will click forms.new to open a new one, and you get this. Okay, so we're going to go over, first things first, is you always want to name your form. So over here on the left side, we're going to call this, let's just call this our example or demo form. Demo form, okay? And usually when you name it here or up here in this menu, it will put the name there for you. So all I did was click over and there's the name that's highlighted up here. Okay. As you create a new form, you can also double check and click the folder icon that is right here next to the name. And you can put this form in a particular folder. So if you have a folder you want it to go in, you can click that folder and then you can click on move. Okay, you can star it and call it one of your favorites, and your Google Drive will kind of put everything that's starred in one little location for you so that it's easier to find. We're going to take a look at everything that's on the right side over here at the top first. Okay, this first icon is a puzzle piece. So this is going to be add-ons, which we're going to talk about later. You can change the theme of your form using this little artist palette. And what I do like about this is you can choose an image that you already have by uploading, or you can use themes that are already created if you want to get all cute with it. Okay, so a lot of times I don't jazz up my forms necessarily, but then sometimes I do. And so you might choose a really cool looking header, and when you select the image you want, you just click insert. Okay, and then it's going to go ahead and change your theme. Now, had I chosen something that had some more colors to it, I would have gotten some more color options on the right. Okay, so if I click image upload and let's pick one that might show us that. Let's go with these. Those look like Mike and Ike's, and I like Mike and Ike's. So, all right. So now I'm getting theme color options that match that photo, and I could just pick whichever one I want. So those are just some little extras you can do. Down here on the right side on this menu that has popped up, you can then change your font. You can make it a little formal font. You can make it a little decorative font. If I'm using this with my students, a lot of times I just do playful because I think that's fun. So that is all underneath this artist little palette, and it says customize theme. So you can kind of see that here when you hover over it. I'm going to skip the eyeball for now, and we're going to go to settings. Okay, so the settings gear is very important in forms because depending on what you're using it for, you will want different settings. And I'm going to show you several examples, different types of forms you might use, but we're going to take a look first at the settings. It's very important that you understand, I guess, the purpose of your form. So if I'm trying to send this out to parents, I am going to want to uncheck this box here that requires or restricts to Livingston Parish Public School users. So if this is a form I'm pushing to the community members or to parents, I'm definitely going to want to take off this check mark. And then you have to think, do I only want them to fill this out one time? Because if I check this box, then they can't add another response. You have options at the bottom to say, can this person or respondent edit their submission? And so if it's something like a volunteer sign up for parents, then I definitely am going to want to check edit after submit, because they might have to go back or might need to go back and change their time if they put the wrong time or date. And then, of course, you can allow the respondents to see summary charts and text responses. So scroll down when you get to this page so that you can see everything that's available, because sometimes if you're zoomed in, you don't see it all. Then if you click over to presentation here in the middle, you've got other options. You can choose to show a progress bar so that as the person is filling the form out, they can see how far they have to go. You can shuffle question order, which is, maybe a nice thing for quizzes if you're trying to prevent cheating as much as possible in a digital format, as much as we can. You can shuffle some question orders. And then you can either show a link to submit another response whenever they're finished, or you can take that away so that they can't, don't see a link to submit another. And then you can customize it. Thank you for your response. You actually do not have to customize it. What I've done here before is, if this is something we're working on in class, I will put a link to the next assignment, or I will say begin reading pages, blah, 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 and do the assignment in Google Classroom. But you can actually place links in this confirmation message. So I could put tinyurl.com/forms LP. So if you haven't filled out the Padlet and had any ideas, that's the web address. But I could put that. And then when I save this form, and this person finishes, they're going to see that link. It's hyperlinked for them, and they can click it and go on to something else. That's really neat. And then the last little setting is the quizzes tab to the right. If I'm going to make this a quiz, what this is going to allow me to do is basically place an answer key into this form so that it's graded for the students. And so I can either release their grade immediately or later. My preference is later when it's a quiz or a test. And then respondents can see missed questions, correct answers, and point values, which I think is important for feedback. And so again, it does depend on the assignment, and it depends on what you're using this form for. If it's another reason you might want to use this is if the students are doing an assignment and you want them to see the correct answers for particular questions, but maybe it's not a test, right? If it's not a test, but I'm going to set it up like a quiz so they can get answers, I might choose to allow them to see it immediately after the submission. And so once I do that, and if you're a Chromebook user, FYI, you can turn on locked mode. I've heard mixed reviews on this because sometimes it works well with the Chromebooks and sometimes people say it doesn't. So this is supposed to prevent them from opening another tab while they're taking a quiz. So you can use quiz mode for something that's not really a graded quiz if you want to be able to provide an answer key to a set of questions for your students. So I'm going to leave that off for now. But at the very end, once you choose all of your settings, you need to make sure that you click on Save at the bottom portion. If you don't save it, it's going to all go away and go back to how it was defaulted. Okay, so I do have, and you can see it popped up here because I left it Livingston Parish Public School users, and it gives me a link to change them. Okay, going back to this top toolbar over here on the right, then you've got your three dots. So many times we can call this the snowman. Let's just call that the snowman. And then the three lines over here, I had heard, which they're not there on forms, but I had heard it referred to as the hamburger. And then this is the snowman. So in the snowman, you've got other options. You can undo. You can, okay, will they be, so I'm going to stop for a moment. Jessica asked, will they be able to see correct answers immediately if you choose to release after manual review? Not usually. If you're, well, let me put it this way. If you're assigning it in Google Classroom, my students were not able to last year. I had to basically return the form to them. And in my settings, I had to make sure that it was set so that I had to push the answers back, so then they couldn't. So However, if you choose for them to immediately get the answers, then yes, they will be able to immediately see the answer choices and the correct answers. So it's important, definitely watch those settings. In the Snowman, we've got an undo option. You can make a copy of this form and then share that with another teacher if you want, or make a copy for another class and then just edit a few questions. You can move it to trash and get rid of it because I don't like it, so I'm deleting it. Pre-filled link I was going to skip over, but basically what this is you would click on it and then it would allow you to actually answer some of the questions for them. So for example, if it, this might be a differentiation thing. If you have, a certain school district or school address that you're having to collect and you just go in and type in the address for the students so that it's already in there, that is one way to do that. I'm thinking like cheerleader registration for camp type of form because they have to have like the address of the school and such, and that would be helpful. You can then choose to print the form. You can add collaborators. And so I'm going to caution you there to be careful when adding a collaborator because they would have access to the form depending on the settings that you push out. So a collaborator can usually change everything that you have done on that form. So you do want to watch your permissions. And then lastly, some add-ons and then your preferences. I'm going to click on preferences and we're going to pull that up and see what we've got there. So form settings. Okay, form settings will be applied to all forms created in the future. And so what this is down here is I'm choosing to make these default questions always required. And then I'm also choosing to make my quiz point value for each question 1 point. I believe Google has it defaulted to 10 points. And so I just go ahead and change that because my students were freaking out. This one question's 10 points and they were just having a cow. So I just went into my preference. Again, I'll show you where that is. If you go to the Snowman and then come down to preferences, you can then determine. If you check off collect email addresses, it is going to put a field at the top of your form every single time asking them to enter an email address. I tend to leave that unchecked and I'll just add that later if I need it. But anyway, you can make your question required and you can change your quiz point values and then you just save those, okay? So those are some settings that you definitely want to be aware of before you start building out this form. Okay, so next, and does anybody have a question before we move on into the next portion? Because we're going to look at adding questions and some of the uses. Awesome. If you do, and I know there's a little delay here, but if you do, type it in and Krista will let me know what our questions are. So usually with a form is it does kind of give you a first question. So in this question, I'm probably going to want to do what's your name? And Google tends to try to predict what type of question you're asking. So it automatically shifted to short answer. And so maybe I want the students always in the habit of putting their full name first whenever they're filling out one of these forms. And so let's just go ahead and build a short quiz. I'm going to show you quizzes first because and actually to do that, I'm going to go into my settings and I'm going to make it a quiz. And I'm going to leave it for now as immediately after submission because maybe this is just an assignment that I want them to have immediate feedback and I'm not necessarily putting this as a quiz grade in my grade book in PowerSchool. Okay, from here, this might be my first one and I always try to do that. The next question that I might push out is what hour are you in or class period? And again, you can do this however you like. What class period are you in? My multiple choice responses are going to be 1, 2, 3, and all I'm doing is typing in and hitting enter. If you hit enter, it just goes immediately to the next choice. Those maybe are all of my classes, okay? So I have 7 sections, and I'm going to let the kids pick between that. Okay. Here, I can come into the answer key because this doesn't necessarily need to be a graded question, and I can make this 0 points. Okay, and so if I make that 0 points, then it's no big deal. You know, it's not going to show up. Same thing with their name. See how it has answer key 1 point. So if it's something like basic information, I'll go in and take out the points and make that 0 points. Okay, so there we have that. So that's kind of some general information. Now, sometimes what teachers like to do is they like to start their questions in a new section. So in this toolbar to the right, you can either click the plus sign to go ahead and add a question immediately to this page, and you can keep all of your questions on one page, or you can section them off. So I can add a section, and this section is going to be time to answer some questions. Okay, voila. Okay, so here I can click a plus sign, and now I've got a question that's in a new section. So maybe I'm going to say, what is the smallest unit of matter? And I just have some multiple choice, right? So let's say solid, let's say atom, and then the neutron, and and so technically the smallest unit of matter would be the atom. And so if I click answer key, I can go in and choose the correct answer here, and I'm leaving the point value at 1 point and clicking done. And then I can add another question. Which particle is found in the nucleus with a positive charge? And again, I can put some options here, right? Atom, neutron, proton, electron. And if I go to my answer key, I can select the one in the nucleus with positive charge. It's 1 point and click done. So you can keep doing that as much as you like. You can even create a new section now and put some free response questions here. So now we'll call this constructed, free response. I'm saying free response. I'm so used to the AP terminology. Free response questions. And now when I add a question under here, I can change the type and I can say describe the difference between a proton and a neutron. Also give one similarity. And so notice that Google predicted a paragraph format here because they might be writing a longer answer text. So the thing with the answer keys on these is when you have a paragraph answer, you are going to have to grade these, excuse me, in Google Classroom. So normally you push these out through Google Classroom to your students. And so then you will go back in and grade them in Google Classroom, and it will usually show you a little check mark or a red X to say if they were right or wrong. Sometimes you can give partial credit. So if this point is actually going to be worth 3 points instead of 1, and I click done, then maybe I can give them 1 or 2 points out of 3 if they didn't get it entirely correct. Okay, so we'll look at that later when we go into our Google Classroom. So that's kind of neat. I can also add in an image. So maybe I want to add an image next, and I'm going to do a Google image search. So when you go to insert an image, you actually get all of these choices. So if you do have an image already on your computer, you can select upload, and then you can go browse for it, unless you have a folder or icon on your desktop already opened. Then Google lets you click and drag it over. So that's really neat. But I could absolutely go browse and pull up a photo of an atom or something of that nature. I could also do a Google image search and pull up a photo of, so let's do subatomic particles. And then it will provide me with anything that is not copyrighted. So as long as you're doing this within Google, you're getting images that you are basically free to use. Okay, so let's just go with this image. If I click on that image and click on insert, it's going to put it below that question. And so I don't have to title this image, but I can say image 1 and so forth. And then maybe underneath this image, I want to add a question. And so I clicked the plus sign. And now I can say, what does the red area correspond to? Or maybe if you want to be inclusive, because we might have some colorblind students, you can say the area with the plus sign. You can be more descriptive. But going to show you something neat here. Maybe like what part of the atom is what I'm asking there. If I want to make this a short answer, I can come down here, and so on the answer key, I can actually type in a correct answer, and it's going to look for that one correct answer. It also has mark all other answers incorrect. So I want to get out of this real quick and show you something else you can do. So down here where the snowman is, at the bottom of this question, if you click that, you can do something called response validation. Now we are going to revisit this as well, but response validation allows you to change exactly what that question is looking for. So the correct answer is going to contain text that contains the word nucleus. Nucleus. Okay. And if they get it wrong, I might say try again. And that message will pop up if they don't put in the word nucleus. Now, their answer doesn't have to be exactly nucleus. They could type in, it is the nucleus. But if it contains the word nucleus, they're going to get credit for that particular question. So that's something neat, and we're going to come back to that response validation and revisit that. Now, let's take a minute and come back up here and look at this eyeball that's at the top of the page. So the eyeball allows you to preview your form. So you're going to see what the students are seeing, or what the parents are seeing, or what, the faculty is seeing, depending on the form. And so it does say, this is what it's giving me. My email address will be recorded, not use switch account. And notice how after I put my name in and select my class period, I have a next button. So I don't see my questions yet. I have to actually click next. And now I can go through my questions. Smallest unit of matter is, a solid, which is incorrect. Which particle is found in the nucleus with a positive charge? Oh, positive P proton. And click next. And then now they're coming to the last section, which you can see here in the header. It says free response questions. So adding sections is a really neat way to really section off your quiz into portions. And it kind of helps the students break it down so it's not so much at one time. What does the area with the plus sign correspond to? I'm just going to make that is the nucleus. And I'm going to submit it. And so describe the difference, but see, and what it did was it notified me you forgot to answer this question. Okay, so I went on and skipped that and I answered down here. And so it is telling me this is a required question. You must answer it. So and I'm just going to go ahead and do that for now. And then I submit it. Now, if I have this set up to view my score and push out answers immediately, the students can click view score. They can see the total points they got at the top. And remember, I went back and made this a quiz so I could give feedback. And whether I'm putting this in the grade book or not, that's my choice. But none of these were worth any points. But it shows me that I did miss this question. And it tells me the correct answer is the atom. So again, if you don't want the students to see that, be sure in your settings to make sure you put that for you to manual review at a later time, and don't let it submit immediately. And it goes through and it tells me all of this. Now, one thing to note, because your students will ask, free response questions in the paragraph form do tend to not grade and give them any credit until you have gone through and reviewed their answer. And once you review their answer, you can then click check mark or X for it's correct or it's wrong, or you could give partial credit. So that's something to know. And then for short answer, questions, you tend to have to do the same thing in Google Classroom. Okay, so we do have a question. Can the students have it read to them and use audio responses? So one neat thing about Google Forms, and let me come back and open up another preview for you. In Livingston Parish, we have Snap and Read. If you can see the top of my toolbar, this is an extension or an add-on. Well, that didn't help my toolbar get any bigger, but this is an extension It's an add-on that our parish has added. So if you are a Livingston Parish teacher, Snap and Read should work on this as well. So I'm going to go ahead and preview it and show you what the students will see. And then they could do Snap and Read on this if they have their account, and they could highlight and drag, and it will read this for them. I have done that before, and it does work. So that's one way you can handle that. Okay, so now that we've looked at creating typical quiz questions, oh, y'all, I can't go on without showing you this. Okay, how many of you, maybe you're a little stressed about getting all your content into the digital platform because you have all your papers ready, and maybe you've been in the school system for 20 years, right? And you've been teaching, and you're thinking, I have to create all this digital stuff. I have to type all this in by hand for everything I do. Y'all are crazy. Okay. I learned something literally a week ago that blew my mind. I've never used it before with students. If you add a question and you want this to be a multiple choice like Scantron, you can do that. So all you have to do is take a screen snip of your quiz questions and insert that image into the question. And then I'm going to show you how to make a quick Scantron. That is really neat and really fast. Okay, so let's go see if I can find the image really quickly in my drive that I wanted to use here. And so I'm going to go to my drive. Bear with me for just a second, because this is going to make a huge difference for me next year. I wish I had known about it sooner. Computer's slowing down. Do you hear it, Krista? It's starting to, it's like, hey, you've used me far too much today. So, okay. All right, we're going to go to forms. Thank you guys for being patient while I open this. Okay. I took a quiz, and what I did, and I'm just going to open this for you to see, is I used the screen snipping tool to actually snip a copy of a quiz. Okay, so if you don't know what the screen snipping tool is, it will change your little teacher life. If you go and hit the window key at the bottom and just start searching or typing snip, it will pop up. You also have a search bar at the bottom left, and if you click on that and type snip, it will pop up. But the snipping tool or any type of screen capture tool is really useful, because if I click on it and I have my quiz open, and maybe it's in Word or whatever it is, and I click new, I can highlight that little portion of the quiz that I want, and then I can save this image. And that is exactly what I did. I just did this little snip. I saved the image, quiz, whatever, you title it, whatever, you put it wherever you want it in whatever folder. And then what I did was I came over here to my form, and you can insert the picture as part of the question. So you can also just insert, click here. I'm going to insert an image underneath that question, and I'm going to go to my Google Drive. I have already put this image in my Google Drive. So if yours is not there and it's saved to your computer, then you're going to want to go to this option on the left where you can upload. Mine, though, I did upload it to my Google Drive. So here is, I double click on the image of my quiz, and I might put some instructions as the image title. Place your answers in the digital Scantron below. Okay, and so that's the image. There's no question attached to that image, but the students would go through and see it. Now, in the question part, for the type of question to the right, if you use the drop-down menu, all of this stuff pops up. So your answer choices can be any of these. Any of these checkboxes and drop-down and multiple choice are great for, like, if you have 4 choices per thing, you could use almost any one of those. But this right here, multiple choice grid, is absolutely amazing. Okay, multiple choice grid allows me to do this. Just like a Scantron. Question 1, question 2, question 3, 4, and question 5, because I have 5 questions on that quiz. My columns are going to be, guess what my columns are going to be? What are my answer choices? A, B, C, D. So A, B, C, and D. Now, when the student sees this particular question, they are going to see a grid underneath where they can actually choose and select. So I'm not going to go back up right now and look at the quiz. I'm just going to go ahead and put some random answers in here because that's just what I'm going to do. And you can change the points as well, okay, over here on the right side. So that is really neat. Click done, and you now have a Scantron. Now let's go look at this magic, okay? Real quick. It's probably going to make me retype in all this, so just give me about 30 seconds if my computer. Okay, so Casey, class period 1, next, and then I'm just going to punch a bunch of stuff in just to get to it. Solid, electron, next. Blah, blah, blah. Here is blah, 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 blah. And here is that magical thing. If you already have quizzes and you were scared about having to put all this in a digital format, there's your questions. And there's your answer key for your Scantron. And so that really did change my perspective on how I can get some of my content into a digital platform. And I know we worry about our kids cheating and sharing answers and such, but this really is neat. And sometimes it might mean we have to change some questions around the next year or whatever it is, but that's super cool. And then the kids can actually answer it, and see what they get right and so forth. Okay, so now let's submit it. And it's telling me, see, I did response validation on this question. So if I don't have nucleus, it's not going to let me move forward. So on this particular problem, response validation is probably not the best thing. That's better for like escape rooms. Okay. So now I finished my form. I'm going to view my score. And same thing, you should be able to see all your questions at this point. I did push this one out. Remember to get responses immediately to see their feedback immediately. Okay, so they can come down here and they can see what they got right on those questions as well. So that is super, super cool. Now let's go back and look at, let's say you really want to get into it, okay, and you really want to give feedback to your students. So let's come back to our form. And let's go back to this section. Okay, and I'm going to click on this question and I'm going to go to the answer key. So you can actually provide answer feedback underneath the choices. And maybe for incorrect answers, you want to say, visit this YouTube video and try again. And you click on the little play button that's underneath. You could also attach a link if you have online content or a website they were supposed to be reading. But if you click on this little YouTube video, you can provide YouTube feedback. So what is an add-on? Let's do that. What is an add-on? And so if there's a video I've already found that I have open in another tab, I could just copy and paste the URL here. But I could also do that URL search right here from within Google Forms. Okay, and so I also like to, when I do this, I'm really big on Fuse School because I know it's pretty vetted and pretty good. But what is an atom? So you click the video you want, you hit select, and it's going to provide that feedback. I can also do correct answer feedback. Great job. And then I save the feedback. So now if the student gets that correct or incorrect, they're going to get some kind of feedback, and this video is going to pop up with them when they go back and look at their answers, and they can watch the video to kind of revisit that topic and make sure that they're getting the correct information and not having misconceptions. So I do love that feature as well. Okay, so hopefully so far you're learning a little bit. You can also come down here and insert a video, or you can do that at the very beginning and make them watch it before they answer questions. And you do that the same way, it's going to do a YouTube thing for you. Okay, so you can insert a video in your form, place it at the top, have students answer questions afterwards. So super, super neat. Okay, really neat. Don't send this to your kiddos from here. Okay, if you're one of our users, we are Google Classroom users this year, so we are not going to send our kids a link from this button. We want to attach that link in our Google Classrooms, okay? Before we move forward, because this particular form is more of a question answer, formative assessment, or even quiz type form, right? I would like to show you, if you could bear with me, how you can do some other things. Okay, so forms.new opens a brand new form for me that I can edit. And I want to show you how you can do maybe a volunteer sign up. So sometimes, and I know these are weird times with COVID-19 and with us doing distance learning, but I know many times we have volunteers sign up for our classrooms, right? Or maybe we're going to do a Christmas party and we want parents to sign up for certain time slots. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can do this. You can create a question where they put their name in. And then you can create a question that says, what date are you available to volunteer? And they can then, it automatically selects a date because again, Google predicts. And so they'll get a calendar pop up where they can actually either select the date or something of that nature. And then the next one I want to add would be, what time can you volunteer? And so there's check boxes, or you can even insert a time option where they can type in the time. Check boxes if you have specific times that you want them to sign up for, and you can actually type those time frames in. What is pretty neat about this type of option is if you want to, we have an add-on in our district at the top. And that add-on is called Choice Eliminator. And so what happens is, it's not going to let me do it if I don't have a bunch of choices. So let me go ahead and do this. 2 p.m. I don't know why I started there. 30 a.m. And you might have a range, right, to 9:30. And then, 8:30 to 9:30. Okay. And then you do 9:30 to 10:30. And you kind of add some choices, right? Okay. So from here, I can set up a choice eliminator. Maybe I only want so many people on so many days at a time. So using the choice eliminator will actually eliminate choices based on their answers. So if someone gets into the form first, it's kind of like first come, first serve. And the next person who gets in, one of the choices will disappear. So let me come into this question and just make this a multiple choice and just say this will be Monday, this will be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. If I open up the add-on for Choice Eliminator, you want to click on Configure. If you do not have this add-on, you can go to the Google Extension Store and search for Choice Eliminator 2. It does say drop-down questions instead of multiple choice is better for reliability. So if you're noticing it not working well, might want to be a drop-down choice. But what I have here is I have options where I can choose the question that I want to limit. And then I click on the box to the right, eliminate choices. It's going to go through all my answers and it's going to apply the settings for elimination to those choices. Okay. In the gear, I can change how many times responses can be accepted. So right now I'm limiting my volunteers to only 1 on Mondays. So I might want 4 volunteers each day coming in and out of my classroom. Don't know if you want that, but you know, hey, somebody might want 4 volunteers daily. So we can do that, okay? And then once we do that, it is now going to change those settings and make sure that you are allowing 4 people to choose each of these days. So store choice, get questions, add choice. So you've got lots of little options from within. And so if we close this out and click back on it, it should have 4 there. There it is. Okay. So that's one thing, because once 4 people have signed up for Monday, I want Monday to go away. Then I can do what time can you volunteer? Now, if you notice, I'm going to click eliminate choices again. It's going to go through my times and it's going to apply these settings to each time. But what ends up happening is maybe I want 2 people for that 8:30 to 9:30 slot and 2 people for that 9:30 to 10:30 slot. And it depends obviously how many slots, but if I have 4 people, I'm going to increase the limit for this one to 2 and the limit to this one for 2. And this would be applied for each day. Okay, so boom, that is done. Okay, so then I can come down here and just minimize this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have all of these people go down to, you can add some sections. And section 1 or section 2 might be Monday's times. And 3. And so on. I'm just going to kind of show you this. Will be the different days. And then what you do is you take this question and you duplicate it and you put the same question under each day. Okay, so then I would move this one so that I have one underneath Monday, one underneath Tuesday, one underneath Wednesday, and so forth. Okay, so you just keep doing that until you get all your sections done. Okay. When people go to fill out the form, again, if you click on preview, you can see what they see. Name would be Casey. I'm available on Tuesday. And then what time can you volunteer? Notice that it took me to Monday's times. That is because if I go to Monday, if I go to my form, I want to make this go to a section based on answers. So right here where the snowman is on this question about the days, if you click it, you can change which day these go to. Now notice I created a Monday section. You see Monday's times here pops up. And had you done this for all days, which I stopped for time purposes, but had you done this for all days, you would have people going to, you know, this one would have section 4 Wednesdays times and so forth. Okay. So anyhow, once you get it completely finished and you come back up here to preview, and this person does put their name and Monday, it's going to take them to Monday's times. And then they're going to choose a time and click next. And what ends up happening is one of those time slots for 8:30 to 9:30 is automatically being removed. So this is a little bit more of an advanced feature, but it is really, really useful if you're trying to collect information in that regard. Okay, so volunteer sign up is really, really useful. You can also set up field trips and registrations, sign outs, book reviews, and breakout rooms. Now, before I get to breakout rooms, because really I consider that an extra. That's like probably super, super detailed and advanced. Again, I think at this point, if you're just starting out, learning to use a form for maybe some formative assessment is probably a really good start. Okay, provide those answers, set it up so it's a quiz so that the students are getting their answers. Let's look at how you get that quiz or formative assessment out to your students. You're going to go to classroom.google.com and you're going to go to whatever the classroom is that you want to put this assignment into. And so from here, what I tend to do, flip over to my classwork page and then you click create. And so you get the option to create a quiz assignment here. And when you do that, it does provide you with this blank Google form. Okay, so if you click on this blank Google form, you can start right back where we started, step 1, where you name it and you go through the different, but it automatically kind of defaults to your quiz settings and it already knows it's a quiz. So when we open those settings up, it's already knowing it's a quiz. You still want to check though, when are the kids getting this? Are they getting it later? Like if it's something I'm really grading, I don't want them sharing answers, I'm going to check off later. If it's something now that we're doing in class or they're working on at home so they can get their feedback, I want them to get that immediately. So that is all going to depend on how you're using this assignment. But the quiz assignment, even if it's not a grade, is a great thing to give them the feedback. So you can do that straight from here by setting up an assignment and choosing quiz assignment, and it automatically generates. But what if you don't want that? What if we want the quiz that we just created, which I think we called it demo form? I can add and then click on my Google Drive. My recent form should be here at the top. Okay, so there's my demo form that we just made with the little jelly beans or the Mike and Ikes. And so I can attach this to the assignment, and I can actually delete and get rid of the blank form that was attached. Notice that this button here in your Google Classroom grade importing, okay, that's ticked on, okay? So we want to leave that on because that's going to allow the responses from the Google form to come over into your classroom so that you can go through and grade them, and also so that you can return it to the students and they see what they got. If you don't turn that on, you're going to have to go into Google Forms and kind of check all their responses there, and that can be a little bit of a pain. So we want to keep that on. So this is going to be demo quiz, or doesn't even have to be quiz, right? Just whatever assignment they're doing. Here on the right side, you can pick which class you want to send it to. So if I want to send it to more than one class, I can. If I'm just going to stick in this demo class, I have a drop-down menu where maybe this is just something I'm sending to one student. So I can uncheck everybody by clicking next to all students, and I can just go check the other student, the 4 students maybe who were doing a makeup assignment. Maybe it's a totally different assignment. Right now, I just have my daughter in here. So once I do that and select my due date, this will be due tomorrow, whatever time, under whatever topic, you can sort it under your topic. Then you will click assign, or you can schedule it for later, or you can save the draft, or you can get rid of it altogether. So we're going to go ahead and assign it now. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to open a new window so that I can show you what the students will see from their point of view. So when this student does get into her Google Classroom, and she goes to her demo class, she will see this form that is sitting in her class. And so she opens it, and over here on the left, it shows her that, hey, there's your assignment. And so she clicks on that form, and she has to take this form, right? And then she has to submit it. So again, we're just going to do this quickly. I can show you how it pops up in Classroom to grade. And then let's see, she's going to do really well. We're going to get all of those right. And then she's going to submit her quiz. And so it does say thank you. Now remember, I published this form in my Google Drive. It did say that she could see her results immediately. So she should be able to click on it and see exactly how many points she got and so forth. Okay, so she is able to go look at it because of my settings in my Drive. Now from here, or from her form, she should just be able to, close that out. And it has me logged in again. Go back to my daughter. And when she goes into her classroom, it should say she's finished. Usually when they submit a form in that quiz format, they don't have to click a turn-in button. And so, but let's see what it did. Okay, so they have to mark it as done. So I would get your students in the habit of marking as done. And then that will check that off of their to-do list. And it will also tell the teacher, hey, they're finished. And teacher, you can go grade my test now, right? Or you can review it. From the teacher point of view, this is what I'm seeing. So it might take a second, but it should refresh now that she has turned it in. And it should tell me that I have one student who has turned it in and saying she's still assigned, but it's turned in and it's just taken a minute. So let's refresh it. There it is. Okay, so now it's saying she's turned it in and there are no more students left to take this assignment. So I can go ahead and I can click here on the turned in forms. I can even click on the form itself to see the responses. So when you're ready to, I'm just really having a hard time with me going back and forth, but when you are ready to review your students' scores, there is a button out to the right with import grades. Okay, that button is where the magic happens. You click import and it's going to pull her score in to that form. Okay, so now if I click on her, no grade, where'd it go? And it could be that it's released the score, but usually it imports and it puts their scores like she would have a 7 out of 11 over here on the response side in the response tab, and it would just kind of say what she did. Okay, so right now it's not showing it, and I'll have to troubleshoot and figure out why. So import the grades. Let's try it one more time and see if it's gonna be good to us. And if anybody has any idea why it's doing this to me, just let me know. And I don't know if it's because of it being a like already released responses or what. So if you have any idea about why it's not showing it, just let me know. Normally, when I have this happen, the grades do import and they do show up next to the student's name. So we will have to play with that and give you some feedback on why it's not actually showing up right this instant, but I'm sure it has to do with the settings I have in my quiz. Okay, so now once you have all the grades done, you can actually click here to return all the grades back to the student. And so when you do return this, she will get the notification on her end in Google Classroom that you have sent her quiz back to her, or her form back to her. Now, from the form itself, you can see the responses right here in this tab at the top. So if you click back to that specific form, you can go and look at a summary. So you can see all the statistics. You can see which questions your students did well on and which ones they did poorly on. You can go question by question and actually come in and this might be why I didn't do it, because I would have to come in and actually give grades maybe to her free response questions. But you can sort through the individuals by using the arrows as well. And you can actually come in and assign and release scores to people who have filled out this form. Okay, so you can get to the responses from within the form. So go to your Google Drive, open the form, and then click on the response tab up at the top of the screen. All right, so that's how you can use that. So let's see some other ways. If anybody filled out the Mentimeter, let's see. What are some other ways that you guys want to use this so that we can look at other interactions? Not the Mentimeter. We're looking for the Padlet. Do you have the Padlet or forms.lp, tiny URL forms.lp? Parent email, assessments, so many options. Like the sign in, sign out. Okay, breakout classes, parent survey, high school, program for math, classroom, pass out worksheets. Let's see, admin can even use this for teachers to sign up for observations. That's a great point too, because you can definitely schedule your observations using this as well. Okay, so lots of great uses for this. If you want, choice eliminator, great for groups. Oh, for example, for English, you can set limits on how many students can read certain choice novels. Very good. And you can limit how many. That's a great point. Student surveys on first day of school, student information surveys, like interest surveys. That's a great idea too, to get to know your students. Class library, to keep track of when students check out books, or even calculators, because I know I have to loan out calculators. That's a great idea as well. All right, from here, what I want to do is I want to show you how you can take that form. I close my tab, so thank y'all for being patient. How we can take that form and share a template of it with another teacher. Okay, so let's open back our demo form. Also, how you can turn off responses. So we're going to look at that in just a minute. So if that form, you wanted people signed up for a field trip by Friday, August the 7th, and you want to stop collecting responses, we're going to go ahead and take a look at that as well. Okay, to come in and stop collecting responses, if you go into, where did we see that? Was that in our presentation, quizzes, general? Oh, it's in responses. Hello. Click on responses at the top next to the word questions. And you have several ways you can look at these responses. You can click on this little icon here, or this little switch, and you can turn it off. And so when you turn it off, it's not going to allow anybody to fill that form out anymore. I did have to do a distance learning quiz for my AP Chem class, and I had to do that when the quiz closed. I went ahead and turned it off so that they couldn't get back into it. So you can turn off responses. So if it is a field trip form or if it's a volunteer sign up, you can come in to the response tab and turn that off. Another thing you can do is you can export your results here into a spreadsheet and create a new spreadsheet. Now, this is amazing because, and this isn't the best form to demonstrate this, but this is great because you can sort by class and by, like all of these are class period 1, but if you had, you know, all your students across the board filling this form out, you can come in and use up here on cell E, there's a drop-down menu, and you can actually sort these by class period. It gives you a little pop-up menu, and sort sheet A to Z does it in numerical order for you. You can come in after you sort, and you can then sort again based on someone's name. So there's a lot of things you can do with sheets, and then you can print this off and you can see when people signed up and so forth. If you want to get rid of all of this, because now it's a new year, and I want to get rid of everybody's previous responses, and I'm going to reuse a quiz. From this response tab, where the snowman is, you can come in and you can, first and foremost, if you want to keep data from a previous year, unlink the form. And what that does is the next time you go to export your information to a spreadsheet, it's going to make a new one for your new year. But you can delete all the responses. But if you don't unlink the form, then in 2021, when I'm giving this quiz in August, I think it should use the same spreadsheet. So it's great to unlink the form. Are you sure you want to unlink? Unlink, okay? And now I can also delete my responses, and it's the new year, and so voila, I have a new form waiting and ready to go for my new year, and I don't have to worry about all that information cluttering up the responses. So that's a great thing to do. If you have forms from last year and you dabbled in this and you want to reuse them, come in and delete all responses using the snowman. Does anybody have questions right now? This is a lot of information at one time, and it is a little bit, it's boring for me to just flip through the presentation, so I'm trying to show you versus just going step by step through the presentation. But don't forget that the presentation is linked in the description of the video, so you can even go back later and you can pull up my presentation that has all of the step by step screen snips of what you were supposed to be doing, okay? Because I definitely don't want you guys to feel like, oh my gosh, this is so much. But we went through our settings, we went through our preferences and how to change that, how to preview, how to add questions and change the question type. And then this is a little gift that I put in here showing you the different options that you can get. And then if you want to make a quiz, these were just some of my tips. You can select the answer key underneath the question, and you can change the point value and select the correct answers and set parameters for short answer questions. And you can also give your feedback. Okay, so I love the feedback options, video or written. And you can also change how they advance based on the answer they selected. And so that's great for differentiation or digital escape rooms, which we're going to look at a little bit later. Viewing the responses we talked about. So you'll click on responses. You can turn off the responses there. And then you can also see a summary of all of your responses that goes either by question view or student view, where you can flip between the different ones. If you import these grades into Google Classroom, then you guys will see the student names pop up in your Google Classroom as you go through them. You can export all the results to a spreadsheet using this icon. And then we went through our features here. So this is where you can make a copy and you can actually share the template that you created for the form with another teacher. So you can make a copy and then you can send them that copy if you want. But here is a really neat way to share a form without losing your special touches. I know sometimes we get a little bit worried about sharing forms with teachers because if we do it wrong and they start typing into the form or changing things, if it's not shared correctly with the right permissions, then you end up sometimes having someone changing your form. And you can go through a version history and all that sort of thing and get it back to where it was, but that's a bit of a pain. So here's a really neat tip, and this works for a ton of Google applications. It works for slides. It works for docs as well. If you highlight after the / at the end, highlight the word edit and change it to copy. And then if you highlight that entire new link and copy it, so you can Control-C or just right-click and get it. When you email that link to another teacher, what it's going to do is going to pull this page up. Would you like to make a copy of demo form? And so maybe this is a teacher who teaches the same thing that I teach, but I want to just send her a copy. And that way she can kind of tweak questions as she needs to without worrying about messing up my original form or the questions that I wanted. So that is a really neat little tip. And so it provided a copy, and notice the name of the form is now copy of demo form. And so that person can then save it to their Google Drive or do whatever. So in Google World, we call this forcing a copy to another person or to another teacher. Okay, so that is super neat. It'll say edit if you're in your own edit version, but you can change edit to copy and force a copy. So you can share it that way. You can also share this form with other teachers here. If you really want, there are times when you actually want to collaborate and build a form together. You can click add collaborators at the bottom and you can start typing in a person's name. Okay. This is telling me when I type in that person's name that they can actually edit this form. Now I can come in here and I can share, I can change some settings here, and it's warning you. Editors will be able to view and delete form responses. They'll be able to do everything, okay? So you do have to be careful because they can actually share this form or give permission. So if you're not wanting that, if you're not saying, you know, Nikki Laverne and Casey Moscow are actually building this form together and changing this form and viewing the responses together, then you probably don't want to do it this way. You probably would want to force the copy like I showed previously. You can also, okay, let's say I want to share this form though with the public and it's a public survey. Okay, I'm probably going to want to change this if I'm sending it to parents or public. So what do? I click on this box down here and I'm going to change it to anyone with the link. And notice it says anyone with the link is a viewer, and that's really how I want to keep it. I definitely don't want to change editor because that means anybody can edit and change my form. But now I can copy this link and I can paste it on my school webpage or my classroom website. And when they open it, they are going to see the form and they're going to have this form exactly like this. Now, if I'm wanting to present the form, because this isn't in present mode, so let's back up a minute, okay? Because this is under collaboration. So if notice when I pasted that link in there and if I'm trying to get people to fill this survey out, this is not the way to do it because this was under collaboration. So I don't want to do that actually. If I want to share this link with the public, then I can send it, okay? Sending it via email, I can click on the copy link here. I can shorten the URL, which I kind of like to do, and then Control-C to copy that link. And now when you post that, you're going to get the option to fill it out. So warning, always test your links that you're trying to make available to the public or to parents or whatever it is, because if they see at the top question and responses above this header image, they are now essentially an editor, a collaborator on the form, and you don't want that. You want it to look just like this, where they don't have any controls, they don't have any settings panels. So if you ever see any of that, make sure you go back and say, wait a minute, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing, okay? So you can definitely share it that way. Email, just start typing in addresses, and you can fill out this stuff. Copy the link, copy, and then click over to a new window and paste. Okay, and then again, from your Google Classroom, if I want to go back to my demo class as a teacher, create, I can attach anything that I want, any form I make. I can go add Google Drive to grab that form, but I can also create a new form here as well. This just isn't in the quiz format because I just clicked assignment. Or classwork, create, quiz assignment, automatically defaults to my quiz settings, and then I can click on this blank form and I can edit it from there. Okay, so I do hope that you learned a little bit. If you want to, stick around and we're going to go through how to build and construct a breakout room, because breakout rooms are pretty detailed. I'm also going to show a few more extensions. And so let's go through and get to some of our extensions. So those are all our Google Classroom how-tos. Sharing. Lots of snips. Okay. If we want to create some really interesting, really advanced forms, you can really use the option of sectioning off to do this. Okay, so there are a lot of little options. Using sections allows you to separate, like I showed you earlier, those question groups, but you can still shuffle options within a section, shuffle questions within a section. So you can provide, for example, a graph and shuffle some questions around that graph and keep it all together. Linking sections. Okay, so here's an advanced feature. If we want to link some sections, I'm going to open up one that I have done this for so far. One of them being our Tech Week survey, which I might just show you because, quite frankly, it's a perfect example of how you would do, or maybe the attendance one, of how you would do a linking platform. So this is the attendance survey you guys actually filled out today when you hopped on. And so you can see that we have all these different functions. We built in sections. So section 2 is all of the Monday sessions. And section 3 are all of the Tuesday sessions. And section 4 and so on and so on and so on. So we've got Wednesday, Thursday, and then we've got Friday into these sections. Now, one thing I want to show you is that once you guys entered your name and your school's name and chose the day of attendance, we did a little something here called go to section based on answer. And so what we did was you use the 3 dots at the bottom, you select go to section based on answer, and then you get a drop down menu that pops up. And so Monday, they would go to the Monday sessions. Tuesday, they need to advance to Tuesday sessions. Wednesday, they need to go to Wednesday. Thursday to Thursday, and Friday to Friday. Okay, and so this is automatically saving this form in my Google Drive. And so that just means that whatever day you select, you're going to hop over here. Now, because after today's sessions, once you check in, that's all we need from you on this form. Underneath the section, there's a little down arrow. And in that down arrow, you get lots of choices. So you can make them go to a different section after they've completed that particular portion, or you can cause them like we wanted you today. After you submitted your Monday attendance, we wanted you to go straight to the submit form portion because there's no need for you to fill out Tuesday right now. So that is a way that you could really section off your forms and really show some cool or do some neat things with this. Now, another option is to create some breakout rooms. This is where, in my opinion, it's really fun as a teacher to create these, and it's really fun as students to do these, okay? So for breakout rooms, and let's see if I can get to, love the search feature, okay, love, love, love. Okay, so here is a breakout room sample that I built. And so notice that I've got section 1. We're going to first look at the sections. Section 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay. So for these particular sections, it's great to have a little map first of what are you trying to do. Okay. So I took, and to show you this, I uploaded a photo to my drive. And I took in, if you're going to make a complicated breakout room, take a piece of paper and write out what you want the kids to do, because they can get complicated really, really quickly. And if you're not doing the settings correctly, it's not going to work how you're wanting it to. So I'm going to open up my Tech Week folder, and I'm going to open up my breakout room breakout room picture real quick to show you guys what I did. Unless I put it on I think it's on my normal picture, my normal drive, sorry. Nope. I just didn't go far enough. Okay, so section mapping. Okay, so this is what I did. I recommend if you want to do a sectioned assignment, breakout rooms are great, but here's another reason you might want to do it. If you are trying to do A or B forms, you can use sectioning. And what I did was I've seen teachers ask silly questions at the beginning in section 1. So the student puts their name and they put their class period, and then they ask a silly question like, who's better, Superman or Batman? And then based on their choice, they either go to form A or they go to form B. And then in form A, maybe I have this question, and then maybe question 2 is going to direct if they're going to a different section or not. So if you take a look at this image real quick, you can see that it took a little bit of planning. Honestly, it just took a few minutes because I wrote out where they were and just labeled some different sections. But then when I go to build this form, I have a map to make sure that I'm doing this correctly, because it can definitely get crazy if you're trying to build a breakout room or a sectioned quiz that is dependent on answers and you're trying to just do that in form with no map. I mean, plenty of people can do it. It's just, I know I'm going to mess up. So it's great to have this little map. All right, in the breakout forms, where in Google Classroom will you look for assignments? Oh, I'm going to look under the stream, and then, let me preview it. So let's say I push this form to my students and I'm doing like a first day activity with my syllabus and different things that I've gone over with them. What are we going to do? Where do we turn in assignments, et cetera, et cetera. So let's just say the student submits next here. And I have this conditional. Notice it kicked him back to this question because he was wrong. So it kind of forces them to choose the correct answer before they can go on to the next section. So under the classwork tab will be where I go. When is your lab fee due? Oh, August or September. I think I did 11. How much is your lab fee? Now I set up a short answer question that was conditional on their answer. $14. Wrong, try again. $10. Correct. What is the name of the online learning platform we are using? Clever. No, and this was something for my kids. Google Classroom. Notice what it says underneath though. Make sure your responses are all lowercase, so it didn't even accept that. And so now I can go back and say Google Classroom. Okay. What is the platform you will check grades on? Power School. And I'm going to put a gap in between here and hit enter. Make sure your answer is all lowercase and all one word. So you can definitely, when you provide the feedback and make these conditional, you can allow them to get or force them to get the right answer before they're able to move on to the next section. Let's see. Let's go back to here as well. And let's find this breakout room. I'm going to scroll for a minute and come back to this one, because some people like to do their digital escape rooms and embed them into Google Sites. But this is another example of one where the student has to read a little bit of an article and then they have to type in a question they have. How does a car engine work? And they hit next. And then in this particular one, I'm giving them a survey. I'm giving them some different things. I think chemicals are unnecessary. We need to get rid of them all. They're super, super dangerous. And they're able to use a linear scale to kind of tell me where they are, what they feel about chemicals. And then clicking next, there's that example of a Scantron again. This time I just did check boxes, because you can do check boxes where they can choose more than one, or you can do multiple choice where it's just one. And the reason I did that is because this says you may circle more than one. So I wanted to do check boxes instead so that they could actually put in more than one answer choice. Do you want to know more about chemicals? So this is what ends up happening. If they choose no and hit next, they're going to go straight to the submit page. If they choose yes or maybe, it's going to take them here. Well, what do you want to know? I want to know if they cause cancer, and then the student can submit that. And so that's another example of a room, breakout type room, where it will take students wherever they are. Coming back to the presentation, this is an example where a teacher took a breakout room form and embedded it onto a Google site. And so what he did is he basically said or gave them things to read, and then they had to figure out a lock or a code. And so in that code, they had to get these right in order to move on and be able to submit the form, or it wouldn't let them. So that is you could use this with regular paper in your classroom, since we're doing a lot of blended learning in the beginning. And you can actually have paper copies of breakout rooms and just put your forms into the computers for the students to enter into. So that is also pretty useful. You can use, go to sites.google.com. I did start one for one of my classes, and Google Sites is a whole different platform that Google provides to us. I started a syllabus digital breakout room. And I'm not going to mention a whole lot about Google Sites here, although it is pretty easy to use and figure out on your own if you're pretty tech savvy. I always recommend, honestly, one of the best ways to learn is to watch some YouTube videos and click around on your own, to be honest. So I did kind of figure out how to create these pages. And so what I wanted them to do when I click on preview mode is I am going to send them here and have them read this part, and then, okay. You're going to navigate to each page to get the clues. Be careful, you only have five minutes. And so clue number 1's at the top, and they have a little 5-minute countdown they can start, and it's a syllabus. So when are assignments due? They can click here to open the syllabus, and before they can move on to the next clue, they have to get this one correct. And so then they can dig in the syllabus to answer the question. So that's another way that you can have them use breakout rooms, is by integrating it with Google Sites. And so hopefully if you have any recommendations for more professional development on any of these particular platforms, or any more of the details that we could do, then please put them in the chat so we can go back and review them, and hopefully provide more of this throughout the year to help support teachers, because it is definitely going to be, I don't want to say a doozy of a year. I think we're all pretty adaptable and we're going to do well, but it's different, us having to adapt everything to being online. And so I know that, especially those of us up here who are doing these trainings, we want to be able to help. And sometimes we were hoping to have this in person so we could really walk around and assist and help people with building these out. And it's difficult sometimes to get that done in this situation, but we're all adapting and do the best we can. Here's another breakout where I inserted a video into the question. Student has to watch it. And right now I have the volume off. It's not really a big deal. And they're going to answer the question, what is chemistry? And the first thing it says is something about chemistry. And I can't remember what it says. And so I know the kids were going to put that in. So I'm like, so close, rewatch again. And because later it actually gives a definition of chemistry that they would type in, study of matter. And that would be the right answer. And so anyway, lots and lots and lots of options. I hope that you guys got something out of this, because truthfully, this is a massive session. And when we were in person, having 2 hours and 45 minutes together would have been great, because we could have really worked together, walked around, assisted. And so the last thing I'm going to mention to you are some extensions that our Livingston Parish Schools has allowed in our forms. And the first one that I have is Choice Eliminator. And what Choice Eliminator does is, I showed you that a little bit earlier. Choice Eliminator lets you basically get rid of responses. So one way I used this last year is I had students do a research project on a particular scientist. I typed all the scientists in as answer choices. I think there were 7 or 8. And then what I did in Choice Eliminator is you can actually you can increase the limit like I showed you. And so since I had, if I had 24 kids in that class and 8 choices, then I allowed each scientist to be selected 3 times. But once that scientist was selected the 3rd time, the student had to go on and pick a different scientist. So Choice Eliminator is great for things like that, allowing students to pick what they want to research or what project they want to do, and just making sure you don't end up with 20 kids doing all of the same scientist and presenting that. Again, time slot signups, concession stand, volunteer. Did I give all of them? Okay, Timeify Me. Timeify Me is another add-on that allows you to add a timer. You do have to go to the timeify.me website, and you can enter in your email or just sign in with your Google livingstoneschools.net account, and it allows you to kind of organize those quizzes. And so you can see at the bottom image, there's a periodic trends and atomic, there's a covalent compounds, and there's a blank one I just attached the Timeify Me extension to in my Google Forms. And so this will let you click on the link. And again, lots of YouTube tutorials out there that really break it down in shorter increments, little 5-minute increments that help you to see how it works. So this is a super neat one if you want a timer to prevent your students from really trying to go to Google or trying to copy or trying to take forever, because especially if they're at home doing one and you want to get them in the habit of a timed test. AP Chemistry has a timed test that the students have to take at the end of the year. So putting a timer on their quizzes helps them pace themselves and understand that they can't take all day. Form Limiter is an extension that we also have that limits when the form is accepting responses. You can enter a date and time for it to automatically cut off. That way you don't have to remember to go back to the responses tab, and you don't have to remember to go turn off accepting responses, because you can do that manually right there in the form. But sometimes you forget. I mean, we're teachers, we're juggling 1,000 things, and this year we're adding a bunch more to that. So for me to come in here and toggle this accepting responses off, that might not happen, right? So using the form limiter will allow you to go ahead and set the date ahead of time so that it will turn it off. You can also limit how many responses you get. So for example, this is great for cheer teams that are hosting cheer clinics, basketball clinics, football clinics, right? Sometimes these groups do this as fundraisers. If you can only accommodate 35 students or 35 kids, you can set a limit to stop collecting responses once it has reached that 35. So form limiter is really neat. You wouldn't necessarily use that with your assignments with your students in class, but it is really cool if you're a club sponsor or a coach or something. Okay, and I showed you Choice Eliminator. So how do you add those add-ons? You're going to use that puzzle piece and select the one you want, and then you will configure it. And it always asks you to configure it or to run it. So that's what you want to select. And so I have in here on Choice Eliminator, you would just pick your questions and tell it to go ahead and check off the box. Form Limiter, you would tell it how, and enable Timeify Me at the bottom to turn that on. So those are some great add-ons, some little extras and tidbits to really help you. I really appreciate you guys being patient. An hour and 38 minutes is a really long time. So if you stuck this out with me, thank you, because I know I'm starting to lose my voice. But don't forget, if you're a Livingston Parish teacher, you need to fill out the attendance form for today. And if you sat through our session survey as well, Livingston Parish teachers, please fill out that session survey for me at tinyurl.com/LPPS Tech Week. All right, while you guys are filling that out, I'm going to go ahead and open up our Padlet and see if anybody added anything else. You can leave the survey link up. That's good. And so let's see if we got anything else, if anybody else put anything, but for the most part, it looks like it is what we had. High school geometry. Yeah, I like that. Oh, science. Make a rule and procedures for science experiment or a contract for lab safety. I like that a lot. Use it for a conference sign up for parents and for feedback. Somebody said like the sign in and sign out form idea. Awesome, awesome. Parents donating items for activities in class. That's great too. That's great. So you guys, thank you so much for attending. Again, the session survey is at tinyurl.com/LPPS Tech Week. And if you need to email me, my email is right there on the screen, casey.moscow@lpsb.org. So definitely, if you have any questions, we'll sit for about 5 more minutes. If anybody has any questions that you want us to address, you can go ahead and type them into the chat and we'll try to address those for you. Other than that, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you guys